This is News Tonight. I'm Courtney Carew.
And I'm Claudia Ruslim.
In the past week, Congress has passed Democratic Senator Patrick Leahy's Anti-Federal Interference of Marijuana Enforcement Act. This act lets each individual state decide the legal status of marijuana usage. It's good to see Congress finally doing something productive for once.
Currently, both parties are discussing the controversial issue of prostitution, and they're attempting to pass bills that would regulate its system.
The committee recognizes Representative Bacchus from the state of Alabama. You have 1 minute.
I would like to clarify something. The government will educate the public on marijuana through the DEA, and that the public service announcements would be enforced by the SEC. And for funding, the taxes will be determined by the amount of criminals convicted in each state. So each state would have a different tax. I use that tax.
Up next is a clip of Republican Senator Ted Cruz introducing his proposed bill on prostitution called the Elimination of Sex Crimes.
Bible that it's only for one man to have women who are committed, and prostitution is wrong and it's against it. So the funding, it will come from cutting the health care by 10%, and budgets for social welfare will also be reduced by 2%. Those who do not abide by this law will be fined with a very minimum of $2,000, and they will be immediately sent to state prison.
In discussing his recent bill, Republican Senator Ted Cruz stated, quote, "The involvement of buying and selling of sex is morally wrong," end quote, in addition to prostitution being, quote, "against our religious beliefs," end quote. United States, land of the free, is supposed to have a secular government and no established national religion. The First Amendment distinguishes a separation of church and state. It is unfair for Senator Cruz to suggest a federal law that would govern the religiously diverse citizens of America based on his own individual religious beliefs.
Senator Cruz also talks about funding this bill by taking money from the Affordable Care Act and social welfare programs. Both of these budget cuts negatively impact low-income families and can significantly decrease their quality of life. Senator Cruz suggests placing all violators of this law into prison. As we all know, prostitution is a very large industry, and putting just half of the nation's prostitutes and panderers in prison would be a huge financial burden to already poorly funded and overcrowded prisons. Up next, News Tonight interviews Nancy Pelosi.
Good evening. I'm Courtney Carew here with House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. Ms. Pelosi, tell us a little bit about your recent legislation on prostitution.
Well, the bill I proposed was to develop a shelter system for youth who are more at risk for being involved in prostitution.
And what is the demographic for these youths?
Well, youth who are homeless are specifically much more likely to be involved in prostitution. In fact, I think it's around 50% of youth on the streets are propositioned to join the sex industry within their first 48 hours of running away from home.
And prostitution has been a recent issue brought up in Congress. What are the Democratic views on this topic?
Well, specifically, the Democratic Party is highly invested in protecting women and children from getting involved in the sex trade, and we believe that a primary part of that is treating prostitution as a lower priority crime and going after the people who are trying to exploit these women and children rather than the people who get caught up in the system.
Thank you. This is News Tonight, and I'm Courtney Carew.
My favorite fall vegetable, sweet potato.
You like potato?
In the fight against childhood obesity, First Lady Michelle Obama supports healthy eating for both kids and adults, in addition to supporting our local sweet potato farms.
Happy Thanksgiving, y'all.